Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Saumini. I work as a senior manager for digital health at Baxter Healthcare. I lead a team of engineers who are building products for chronic kidney patients, helping them do their therapy at home. So I'm super excited to be part of PLF 2023 conference with all of you here, and I feel it's going to be a great Friday. So I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Gopichand Katragadda, founder and CEO of Myelin Foundry. He's also the independent director of ICICI Securities and Bosch. Prior to this, he has been the ex-CTO of Tata Sons and also the managing director of GE Technology Center. So with over 33 years of rich industry experience, I would say that Gopi is also a multifaceted leader. So some of us were talking to him just before, some time ago. So he is not just a technologist. He is an author. He is an entrepreneur, an innovator, an artist, and also a movie maker. I think if he is not an innovative product, I'm not sure what else is, right? So he is also an advisor for the NASSCOM technology board. And with a PhD in electromagnetics, being a hardcore technologist, I've heard Gopi talk about convoluted neural networks as well as South Indian movies with the same passion. So that is really endearing for all of us. So as PLF enters into the 9th year, of this celebrating the product ecosystem in India and product leadership, I think this is the opportune moment for us to hear from Gopi on the new frontiers of product leadership. So over to you, Gopi. Welcome.
Thank you, Saumini. I'll take it from here if that is okay. So very happy to be here and discuss products. That's what I've worked all through my 33 years of career. So that makes me an old guy probably, but young still in terms of wanting to contribute to India technology and the teams around me. Right, so we'll talk about products and what it takes to build products. Maybe I'll give you some tools, modification of which will be useful in your own search for products that you want to bring into the market. So it's been already a good session for me. I met Saumini. She's a script writer. So if you search for me in Google, surprisingly, it will say that I'm a movie director. And I don't know how that happens. I tried to get that knowledge module so that I can modify, but I just have not been able to. It says movie director and it will show one movie, which is correct. I made one movie, which was an ultra low budget movie and released it also. But I have been 33 years in the technology field, but it still calls me a movie director. So I found my partner in Saumini from a movie standpoint, and as well as I found a fellow college mate, right? Deepika, where are you? Yeah. So we were talking about the fact that RV College was a boys' college when I joined. So we actually fought for having Deepika come into the college. So these sessions are great for networking. Networking is only good enough if you maintain those relationships. So hope you carry back some of these relationships also. So talking about products, product leadership, there are various aspects that we need to think about. But as product leaders, we need to be Renaissance thinkers. So we need to be thinking about what next. We can also, and we must, make sure that we are thinking about the current needs and meeting those needs in the best possible way from our shores. Right? So if today, if we look at setting up a power plant, and India needs to double our power generating capacity, so from about 400 gigawatts to 800 gigawatts. And in doing so, what we will find is that most of those products are not from Indian shores. Those are all imported. So there is a need to make sure that we can do those products from here also, because each gigawatt is $1 billion of revenue. right? So the market is $40 billion per year over the next 10 years. I'm talking just about the products in the energy generation space, and transmission and distribution is another $40 billion per year. So that's an $80 billion, because we cannot evacuate the power generated without adding additional capacity. Right, so there is a huge market. That market currently is being taken by people who are importing, right? So there's no other option at this point of time. But also, there's no point in reinventing the wheel, right? So sometimes it is better to have a new starting point and have a seat at the table based on that, and that way you have a fair exchange of goods. So the products that I would encourage you to think about are things which are not there today, that you are creating from these shores, and which help us get better deals for products which we need to get anyway, be it an aircraft engine or be it a turbine. Right? So in doing so, we need to be responsible. Much of the climate change that we are talking about today is an outcome of products we as technologists have put out over the past 200 years. Right? So when James Watt invented the steam engine, he probably was not thinking that it will be such a massive impact that an industrial age will be created and so much carbon will be put out into the atmosphere. Today, when we are thinking about responsibility, we think about carbon because that's the past. But if you think zero carbon only, and whenever you think about it like that, zero something, you will go and damage something else, right? Because then you will damage either the soil or the water, and then claim that you are zero carbon, or for that matter, zero plastic. Same thing, right? So as engineers, we need to think and educate people that, by the way, the t-shirt you're wearing which says zero plastic, no, nobody is wearing. I'm just I'm just saying that. It happened that t-shirt that you're wearing which says zero plastic, that slogan zero plastic is plastic. Right? So people do it without knowing, so it's our role to make sure that being responsible means that we are truly responsible and we're asking the right questions for the future, and not just saying, okay, some slogan, zero carbon and zero discharge, and those are all great and we need to do that, but we need to make sure that we are more responsible because we are endowed with the capability to do that. Being a product leader also means that we have to be creative. We have to be multidisciplinary. Today, if you want to make a creative product, it is very difficult to say, I will be a mechanical engineer, I will figure out the stresses and strains and create a product. We also need to be, to some extent, an electrical engineer, to some extent a software engineer, to some extent an AI engineer. And as product leaders, we need to have the confidence to say, I don't need to be an expert, but I need to know how to put to use these technologies. We need to be hands-on. By hands-on, it is of course being hands-on in terms of the product that we are developing, the design, the details. But also being hands-on means being closer to the customer, being closer to the data, wherever it is being generated or consumed, and being into the product, whole body, life and soul. Change agent. If we have to be responsible, that itself is being a change agent, but also no product is forever good. So as product leaders, we need to think about what next, even for our own products. Otherwise, we'll be left with a Walkman when somebody is building a MP3 player, right? It's an old example. Or we will be left with hotel chains where somebody else is making money of putting software on top of that. So we need to be a change agent, and we need to, in India, think more about being globally pioneering. Right? We have the right to be globally pioneering. We have the talent to be globally pioneering. So we need to be thinking about that. Yeah, so what are your global pioneering bets is what I would like you to first think about as we start off the day. At your work, what are your global pioneering bets? You have that responsibility to your company, to your team, to your nation, to think about what are your global pioneering bets. Now, these don't have to be something. We talked about rocket science. We have a daughter of a rocket scientist here. This doesn't have to be rocket science. I'll give you an example. At GE, we made a low wind regime wind turbine. It's a product. And that product was entirely built from the team, which is just some 200 meters from here, right? And that is producing $2 billion in revenue for GE globally. We built it originally for India because Indian wind regimes are 7 meters per second. Globally, the better wind regimes where the wind turbines were being deployed were 14 meters per second. So we needed to build something which could produce reasonable value energy, which means you can produce energy from any wind, but then it should be also something that makes sense to put up a wind turbine and the costs involved, right? But in order to do that, we had to re-engineer pretty much everything. We had to create blades which were much longer. The loads were very different. The tower had to be redesigned, hence, and everything had to be redesigned. We also made it a brilliant wind turbine in the sense we put in enough AI and software into it. So it became a brilliant wind turbine and a brilliant wind farm. So in doing that, we created a $250 million revenue for regions in India. But what happened was globally the better wind regimes got exhausted. Right, so they needed the lower wind regime turbine. So now we get $2 billion revenue from that. Now this is not rocket science, right? This is stress and strain analysis. And sometimes that is what a product is, that's what is required. Let us do it. Let's bring that capability into India. So what are your global pioneering bets? And it could be from one of these areas that I'm putting up here. And when I talk about technology, I always make it a point to say that first understand the trends, then understand the market, and then think about the technology. Most of the companies that we are all in will move that way only. Some of the most innovative companies will move 20% from left to right, which is from technology to the market. It's a technology push. Even those companies, even an Apple or whoever you consider most innovative, will be only 20% technology push, if at all. They will also be market pull based. If Steve Jobs is there, he will push technology more. But without Steve Jobs, I have met Tim Cook. It's a market pull organization, right? There is nothing wrong. So the technology push and market pull are both products, right? So just to be aware that when we think about a product, we think many times, at least the technologist thinks about technology, right? Thinks about some aspect of let's say tumor and how to detect a tumor. If you are in a healthcare business, how to automate that detection, how to get to detecting 0.5 mm dimension tumor, how to detect cancer before it even becomes cancerous. These are the things that we are thinking about from a technology standpoint. From a market standpoint also, we need to think that if we want to think about a product in this age, and we are thinking about using AI to look at images coming from CT or MR, it's good but not the best. If you think about a new modality where you don't need CT and MR, that is a great product, right? Because that is pioneering. And it is possible. If you are able to detect chronic inflammation even before it becomes a chronic disease, of which cancer is a manifestation also, then it is even more pioneering, right? It doesn't exist today, right? So that is the evolution I would like you to think about in terms of technology and the market. But this chart is only important from the standpoint that the point I'm trying to make, which is think about the trends. The trends around the pandemic and social distancing might have reduced from what it was during the pandemic, but it has left a permanent mark. The amount of video conferencing that we are doing today is much beyond what we were doing before. The amount of work from home that we are doing today is much more than what we are doing before. The amount of global meetings that we are avoiding actually traveling is much more than what we were doing, and there is much more of an impact. But those trends, how do they translate, and how should they translate, right? So if I'm getting into an elevator today, we still press buttons, right, for going to different floors. Why should I press buttons? You should just be able to say second floor and it takes you to second floor. It's so easy, it's simple, any of us can do it. Voice recognition of any accent is pretty straightforward today. So if you're in the elevator business, you better be thinking about a product which is using voice recognition, right? So that is the nature of looking at trends, moving into a market need, and going into technology which will help you do that. So if you want to recognize voice, you will be using AI. right? So maybe you'll be doing much more than that in the future, but that's how you think about it. If you're building an automobile today and you're thinking that it's taking people from point A to point B, it's an old product. Because today it's an infotainment system, today it is a social networking system, tomorrow it will also be a health system. You're sitting there for long enough that I can put sensors in the seat and get whatever I want, blood pressure, skin temperature, and heart rate variability. If I get all of that, then I can do a lot. And if I go to a doctor also, I'm not ready to spend 5 minutes. I'm sitting in the car for much longer. So it should be able to be leveraged for much more. Right? So that's the way, at least I would encourage you to think about products. What next? So current need and emerging need, and have a thought on what is the evolution. So going from diagnose and cure to predict and prevent. That is a healthcare direction that is what is happening today. And going from affordable renewable energy to a near zero carbon. I would avoid saying zero carbon, that's why I'm saying near zero carbon renewable energy. That's the trend. But whether I like it or not, the trend doesn't listen to me. The trend is going to be whatever it is, right? So we have to acknowledge it. Then you can have a position on it. Then you can go in and say, if I have to do this, there is an intersection of computing, there's computing, biology and materials, which is going to make this happen. So if it is in the medical area, like Soumini is in, it's very clear that there might be a media which carries medicine, and there is a way to determine how to target certain cells, and so it is very clear. But even if you're in energy, you can produce hydrogen from algae, and you can produce more hydrogen than carbohydrates by modifying the DNA of the algae. I'm not getting into whether it's responsible or not, but it can be done. The responsible or not, we should definitely think about it. If you're modifying the DNA of algae, what else is going to happen? That something is what we need to be thinking about. Right, so let me pause periodically and take questions rather than it being a continuous monologue. So I'll just pause there. I've said a few things. So if you don't mind, we'll take some questions right there. Can we? Anybody? Too early in the morning? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, morning, Gopi. You were mentioning how do we approach for maybe a solution as a technologist. First, we look at the trends, then into the market, and then into the technology, right? So, what do you think is the best source where we find these trends? Because each trend, some reports give different pictures. So,
the method I would strongly encourage you is, see, from a technology standpoint.
Just a continuation. Is it a mega trends? What you mean when you tell trends, or is it just a low level trends? Yeah.
So mega trends is how you can think about it. Everybody will put something out, but what matters to you is, have you been following it for some time? So if you track technology trends, they move very fast. Things which are already in the market, they move very fast. So it's very confusing, right? How do I keep track of all of it? But if you track the sciences behind it, they move very slow. So if you have been curious enough that you're tracking the sciences, then the trends actually all coalesce into some science, and you have an intuitive feel of those things, right? So while I might have done AI in 1990, I'm comfortable enough today that, be it a convolution neural network or whatever other manifestation it might take, I relate to and I have an intuitive feel what can work, what cannot work, and where does it make sense to use it, where does it make sense to use some statistical technique, right? So that's because you're following a science into technology, into the market, right? So I would encourage you to think about it that way. And there are very few sciences. So if you follow them, the technologies which matter to you, you don't need this list. So I was the group CTO for Tata Sons. I was the head of technology for GE. My role required me to track everything. But for you, you need to create your own chart which makes meaningful sense for your career, right? So, and there you will find that there are maybe 3 sciences, and that manifests itself into 5 technologies which will hold good for 10 years, right? And you should have a view different than what a McKinsey view is. The McKinsey view these days, it is no longer that you go and pay $1 million for McKinsey and it's respected, because you know that all that they do is talk to you, talk to him, collect it and create a report, right? So it's good for you to have that view, and those trends are your trends, right? And which have been soaked through your filters. Thank you. Other questions? So what we can do is I just pause there so that you know that I'm going to pause. So keep your questions ready and handy, and feel free to even raise your hand in between if you would like. I have, I think, until 10:10, so I'll go till then, but Q&A will not leave till the end. You have a question, yeah.
Thank you. You were saying about the trends, right, sir? So, like, is there any strategy or technique to identify the trends or any source frequent commonly used?
Yeah. So, there are very good sources. Today, you can use ChatGPT. It will give you great answers. You have to use your domain knowledge to make sure that you've asked the right question and got the right answer. ChatGPT is still evolving and not, foolproof. But it's such a wonderful tool. But then you have Google Scholar, you have Google Patents, right? So if you're interested in an area, you can very quickly get data as to what other companies are doing. Patents are a little dated, because by the time it gets published, it's a year and a half at least. Google Scholar gives you publications which are much quicker, and you can see what is happening. And then there are places like GitHub, and various open source places which have even code included, right? Everything is there. So it's a wonderful time to look at these things from a technology standpoint. So you see, I again fell into the trap of technology, starting with technology. But then if you think about the market trends and then the geopolitical trends, you have to be curious. You have to be open to inputs. You have to be talking to these kind of people. You have to be in CII or the product leadership forum, wherever those inputs are coming to you. And keep your ears open and ask questions when you need to know more and things like that. There's no shortcut in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Move on? Okay. So what is the intersection that matters to you? So think about it, that from a product standpoint, you're going to be most successful by bringing together things, right? So you need to think about what is the intersection that matters to you. These questions I'm posing so that you actually think about it. We do not have a workshop style, so we'll keep moving. Okay, so what is the team looking like now? Your teams, yourself. What is it that you are wearing on your t-shirts, right? So if you look at when we graduated, I was an electromagnetics guy then, I'm an electromagnetics guy now. I used AI to classify electromagnetic signals then. I use AI to classify videos now, or enhance videos and things like that. So being an expert in one area was good for your entire career, right? So no longer so. You have to be a continuous learner. Even then we were continuous learners, but today it is even more important that you think as a product leader, you are a continuous learner for sure. As a leader, you are also a continuous learner. Your team also needs to be coached that they have to be continuous learners. Expertise is a good starting point, but it is not going to be good forever. As soon as we call ourselves experts, it is a downward trend, right? So we need to think about ourselves as having expertise, but classifying ourselves as experts is a dangerous terrain to be in. We have to be storytellers and artists. Everybody might not be able to write like you, so many. But we all need to be storytellers and artists. To be able to sell our idea, you need to be a storyteller. To be able to sell your team, you need to be a storyteller. And to be able to motivate your team, you need to be a storyteller, right? That's important. Deep relationships, everybody understands. But very few deep relationships are the ones which are going to help you in the career. It's going to be those weak links which are still valuable enough. So leverageable weak links are those where you've had one or two interactions, but there is a credibility established. You're willing to do stuff for them, they are willing to do stuff for you. These are the things which matter, because deep relationships you will have with 10, 20, 30, not more than that. Right? So your career is not going to be determined by those 30 relationships. So you need to be able to build, especially as a product leader, you might need some help from a cloud person, you might need some help from a system on chip person. You need to be able to think, who should I reach out to, right? And so leverageable weak ties. We talked about responsible. The teams that we are working with come de facto responsible. They are connected to the planet, and we need to understand that, we need to relate to that, we need to motivate them based on that. Our products need to be visionary in that sense. And as a part of that, we need to be custodians of whether we are a manager or a VP, we are custodians of that team, or we are at the bottom of the pyramid to help the shop floor succeed. Right? So that's how we need to think about ourselves. Product also, we need to have the feeling that we are the custodian for this product. That's the way we think about what is the next product. Right? Otherwise, if we get too married to the product, we might not be thinking about the changes. Right? So I talked about this before in the Renaissance slide. This is a different flavor of the same. Since Deepika mentioned about mindsets, so I am taking the liberty to re-emphasize. So at this point, the question to you is, what is the battle? What is your battle for the planet? What is your battle for the planet through the products that you are building? So now I'll go like an express train so that we are able to cover, but still I will pause for questions in just a bit, so keep them handy. So then, when we are thinking about product leadership, innovation is an important aspect, and they are pretty much very difficult to differentiate one from the other. So I'll talk about this in the flavor of product leadership itself. So when you are building products, you have to create, you have to nurture, and you have to change. So this message has come back again, right? When you're creating, you can create in very many different ways. The way you create, way your company creates, the culture of your company is going to be unique. You cannot just model some other company's behaviors and say that this is how we are going to be creative. But the fact is that to be able to succeed long term as a product leader, you need to be creative. And you need to be able to provide an environment of freedom where your teams can be creative. But here's where the confusion comes in. Right? People think being creative means being free, and that's it. Right? An idea, being creative, is a starting point. And for you or for your teams, they need to know that 99% of the time, or 95 at least % of the time, they're going to be spending nurturing that idea into the market. And that is very tedious. It is very onerous. It is very boring sometimes. Right? That's where you're going to not have the freedom to do whatever you want. You have to present it, you have to talk about it, you have to show the statistics, you have to be able to tell the story. Otherwise, you'll remain an idea person, or you'll remain an idea team. And those teams do not succeed. In India, everybody has 100 ideas. Right? So people, if you are a VC, you almost puke if somebody says, I have an idea. Nobody funds an idea. They fund the effort, the team behind the idea. Right? So just get this in your mind that ideas are important, because without those there is no starting point. But that is a starting point. After that comes the real work. I've seen many product leaders who are successful because they put in the effort required to take the idea into market. It was not even their idea. Right? It was taken from elsewhere. For example, Steve Jobs himself walks into the Palo Alto labs and takes ideas. It's legally, there's nothing illegal. You look at Microsoft, same thing. The operating system was not Bill Gates. He went and bought it for some $10,000 because he already had a contract for much higher. The person who was selling didn't know for him $10,000 was a lot. Right? So these are not necessarily the examples only which you have to take, but the point is still the same, that it takes a person who has the patience to nurture it into the market, who makes a great product leader, not necessarily the idea person. The idea person is important, But there are way too many. In India, we have a lot of ideas. If we lack anything, it is the funding and the patience to take an idea into the market. As companies, as individuals, we need to think about that. So we have not yet come to change, but that is important as well. When we are the most successful with a product, then we have to think about what next, right? So the bullets which are there are going to be related to the create, nurture and change. The mindsets are unique. Freedom goes with create phase. Nurture goes with passion and change with detachment. The passion cannot come in early when there is an idea phase. Why? Because you will get tied down to one idea, your idea, and you will not allow ideas to come and flourish from wherever the source might be. And products is not about you. Product is about the product being the best it can be. Like a child. Let the child be who the child is. Not that I wanted to be a Bharatanatyam dancer, I couldn't be, so my child will be. Or I wanted to be a cricketer, so I'll make the child a cricketer, right? So that's not the way we build our product. The product has to be based on the global trends, the market needs, and you pull the technology to make it happen, right? You need to have a passion for the problem that you're solving, but hence you need to be open to ideas at the idea stage. Okay, so 1 through 6 are different companies, how they do creativity, right? They're all different companies, yours might be different. So what I said still holds true. You cannot replicate these 6, any one of the 6 or all 6 or a combination of 6 and say I will be creative. You have to do it your way. But you have to create. You have to have that freedom in that phase. That remains a constant. And then 7 through 11 are bullets which are talking about nurturing, how different companies do it. And 12 and 13 are the change. Few examples only, but good examples, we'll talk about it. So this is the only example. I will go in little detail and then just flow through. Anybody recognize what these are? Sorry? Jumpers. But little more than that, they're baby diapers. In China, right? So in China, Procter & Gamble wanted to go and sell diapers in 1990s, late 1980s and early 1990s. And their plan was very simple. FMCG is a great place where you can learn how they understand the customer. And Procter & Gamble is a great place. It's a great FMCG company. What they did, unfortunately, was that they decided since China was far off, they'll analyze it sitting in the US. They said, simple analysis, big country, 1 point some billion people in those days also. Lot of children. They need diapers. Nobody was wearing diapers, so huge market, cost-conscious market. So we will have to invest in technology which will make the diaper cheaper, because the diaper had to last for 8 hours. Sorry, the first example I'm taking is a diaper example, but it's a good example still. So they went with that into the market in China and failed miserably. And they couldn't understand why. There were babies, the babies are not wearing diapers, it's very unhygienic. And then they went, at that point of time, did what they normally do, which is live with the customer, right? And even in GE or wherever else I was, at the customer, for the customer, whatever be the slogan, being with the customer and truly observing, not only asking a question, but learning from how they were behaving is very critical to understand the customer needs. So then they figured out that the Chinese were using cloth diapers. The cloth diapers, when they get wet, the baby cries, so they had to be changed. Right, which was more hygienic because there is no diaper rash involved. Right, those of you who had children have used diapers, I know, and know that the diaper rash will come, no matter how great your parents are, how great a parent you are. So the Chinese actually considered the Western diaper as unhygienic. And not only that, you see there's a hole right in the middle. So most of the time when the child relieves himself or herself, the diaper doesn't even get wet, because there's a hole right there. That only in the night time when the baby slept, it got wet, the baby woke up parents, and many a marriage fails at that point of time. Who goes and changes the diaper in the middle of the night, right? So that's what they discovered, and they decided we'll work on a nighttime diaper. And the nighttime diaper was more expensive than the daytime diaper, because it had, the daytime diaper I said 8 hours, it had to last 4 hours. The nighttime diaper had to last 8 hours. So it was more expensive. And in doing so, they brought out a more expensive diaper into the market. Within a year of them introducing it, in Shanghai, 90% of the babies were using that product. I hope you consider a diaper also as a product. Right? So, if you are in the FMCG business, there is no alternative. You cannot think that by doing some fancy analysis sitting from somewhere else, you'll be able to get the information that you need. But even in a B2B business, you have to go to the shop floor, you have to go to the refinery plant, you have to understand the angst of the person who is your end customer finally. Right? I went to Mangalore refinery plant as a GE person who had taken over Betts Dearborn. They said that everything is good about GE, but you just optimize for getting revenue. So Betts Dearborn was putting the product in certain location where it required only a small quantity because of the volume of product, but you are putting it at a later point where the volume has grown, and at that point you are basing it on that volume, and you are charging us more, and we are going to drop you as a provider. Right? So unless you go there, because the management to management discussion is not having all these nitty-gritty details. I went there for something else actually. I went there to install a product for looking at corrosion under piping. And we had developed a new product which used electric impedance tomography. It was brand new, patented, and I was doing that, but they saw a GE person, they felt that they need to pour their hearts out, right? So they did, we saved that contract, at least for a portion of time. I don't know what happened after that, but you have to be at the customer. So let me pause there for some questions. Somebody?
I have a question.
Sorry, I can't.
Gopi
see you.
Here.
Oh, you, okay.
Okay, this is regarding continuous learning and how it fuels innovative thinking, right? So in India, typically if you see learning is kind of time boxed. So till school, there is a rote learning system, and then college, maybe science or engineering, but there is hardly much hands-on. And then when we are into our career, at some point we reach a midlife crisis and we feel, okay, we have to learn about leadership. Right, so it's always time box saying we learn this aspect at this time of our life and then move on. So do you think these are impediments when it comes to a creative thinking or to innovation?
Yeah. See, if you look at people like Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, they have come from the same environment and they have gone on to do great things. So few things as reflections. I think the rote learning aspect is still important. There is a phase of life where rote learning is important. Just like if you're learning classical music, which I've never done, so I can talk about it. You actually have to learn properly, the ragas or whatever, right? In fact, forever, many people, that's it. That is classical music. They have learned and they are able to reproduce. But the great masters are the ones who are able to produce the variations which are sitting on a solid foundation of many hours of riyaz in lake or however it works. So I don't think rote learning is bad by itself, but not having hands-on experiential learning in addition at the right time is what is the issue. Rote learning, maybe 80% rote, 20% experiential at an early stage. Going to 80% experiential, 20% rote at a later stage is critical. Also, the way we test for our engineering is purely and globally is purely based on some exams, but engineering is much more. It's about being hands-on, which I have mentioned. There is absolutely no test for engineering capabilities and engineering design capabilities, design thinking capabilities, creativity capabilities. There is no test for that. It is all about some train going under some bridge and some sound and Doppler effect and all those kinds of tests which are producing, okay, we are producing geniuses, but longer term, in order to produce product leadership, we need to do better at that stage, at the undergrad stage. Most importantly, we have the biggest lacuna in the graduate phase. Right? Masters and PhD, we do not have even the minimum capability in India. We have institutions which have become over proud for no good reason. right? They're so far off from anywhere global standards, but they want to discuss about IP the first thing when a corporation goes to talk to them. Right? This is where the biggest problem is. And also the problem is we do not pay enough to faculty to get the best into the academic world. There are a few stars, and I have worked with them as well, but a few stars will not change the landscape, right? So in the corporate world, we have many stars, because if you look at the career growth at some stage of career, whether you're sitting here, Dubai or America, you make same, you earn more here because of the relative power of the money that you have earned. But in academics, it's not like that. So if I were to place responsibility of change, it should be in grad school. Everything else, I think we have enough of raw capability, right? So the bigger restriction is in ourselves, which is we have a hand-mind market barrier. So people who have learned think it is beneath their dignity to work with their hands. It is a age-old thing which is disappearing now, almost disappeared. But people, again I'll repeat, people of the mind think it is beneath their dignity to touch the chain in the cycle and repair it, or whatever these days you do. But each time you use your hand, there are neural pathways which open up. Not just about that cycle chain, but it opens up a new set of pathways which are available for other tasks also. And we lose them by not using our hands, right? So for everything we have somebody else who can do it. We don't get into the kitchen and cook. These are things which will be more of an issue. The hand needs to be used. The mind, anyway, we have superlative capabilities. I have experienced all the team members ever, but superlative. I have not found equivalent mind power anywhere in the world. And I have worked in several places, right? And understanding of market also is superlative. That's why you have Oya, Olo, all those things. But they are purely market understanding people. They do not connect so well with technology. But today that's also changing, because IIT graduates are going and opening, and still you see that it is still the business community which is doing it. Right? So that hand-mind market barrier has to collapse. It is collapsed in my view, and hence we are seeing magic happening right now.
Gopi.
Yeah. Sorry if you can, yeah.
Gopi, always listening to you is always learning, and I follow you since you joined CTO of the Tata Group. In India, we see we are basically the service-oriented mindset.
Yeah.
And we need to move to the product-oriented mindset. That's what we are talking about. So that's why we as a country is known. We spoke about fancy analysis and initially Deepaman spoke about the design thinking. I work with the 20 top OEMs worldwide, and I see one of the OEMs, he spent 5 years to really move here and there across the world to find into the problem on which he will work, and he spent entirely on design thinking, process empathizing to come up with the idea, and now in the last 1 year, $1 billion company worldwide, and he was revolutionized into the, not in passenger and commercial vehicle. My question is to you, your insight, when we talk about the fancy analysis and when we spoke about really getting understanding of the problem state, getting connected, spend much of the time on that. So can you throw some light, how much time is to spend to really find out the problem, then work on the product development, which makes the impact to the society?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, 5 years seems to be a long time, but I can understand what you're saying. See, in that 5 years, that individual probably tried many mini experiments. He was just not doing analysis. You would have, typically you're encouraged to do in an agile manner, bring out something into the market or a small segment of the market and see whether there is a pull. And because if you do analysis only, you will not get that learning. Maybe by luck you might get it, but otherwise the advice is that you do quick market experiments. So we are used to experiments in technical experiments in the lab or technical experiments in general, but the market experiment aspect it needs to be a little more. Jim Cash from Harvard Business talks about the market experimentation. So we need to think about how do we do quick market experiments, what are the methods that we have to do that. So what is quick? If you go to the Bay Area, California, 3 months. That is quick. But if you go to Boston, because that is more deep tech, they are working on materials and those innovations. That will take 3 years, right, to get into the market. So depending on what is the technology that you're using, if you're AI and software today, 3 months is enough to get something into the market, do a quick test. If you're working on batteries and battery management systems, it will go to 3 years, and if so. Right, so I hope I answered that.
Yeah, it was from Bay Area only, but it's just about entire automotive, the product development.
Yeah.
Not the
automotive
system or subsystem or component level.
Now I'll tell you how things work, just to give you a flavor from a product standpoint. Autonomous vehicles in India, we will have some level of autonomy, but full autonomous level 4, 5, it doesn't make sense. So let's put it like that. But when I went to Stanford and they were looking at how drivers will behave in an autonomous vehicle, the experiments were very simple. So what they did was they created a car where the steering wheel was on the wrong side from their standpoint, which is correct side for us. And then they put a barrier between the driver's side and the passenger side. They made the driver sit on the driver's seat without a steering wheel. Somebody else was driving. But they were feeling that they were driving based on some autonomous guidance that they were giving. It's so simple, right? So think about it. It is not any fancy experiment. This experiment was to look at whether they're comfortable saying that go to cafeteria and the car will start driving by itself, according to them, psychologically. Right? So this is the nature of experimentation that they do. We don't need fancy experiment, but you need the experiment. And similarly, you need simple experiments to test the market. Right? That's where the Bay Area is good at. In the other end of the spectrum, on that side, it's deep technology. It takes long. It's very painful and things of that nature. That takes long time. There's no, for example, we all know Chetan Maini. Battery management systems itself, he has so many patents, and it has taken so many years, right, for him to build that portfolio. I think I'm running out of time completely, but can I take 2-3 minutes? 5 more minutes, okay. So I'll just give you other companies. So this is Procter & Gamble, which I talked about. Yeah. So another flavor is shaping the market, which is not just understanding the customer, but actually driving the customer. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the computer makers build their computers around a chip. The chip is a component. But forever and ever, Intel drove the computer industry. By building a chip, the next generation chip, computers were built around it. So being knowledgeable enough to shape the market. Yeah, nobody will talk about products without talking about Apple. So Steve Jobs is no more, but he's not gone anywhere because he sits in his product. Otherwise, an iMac will not have a GarageBand, iMovie. Why would at that point of time anybody think that everybody needs to make music? Or everybody needs to be able to edit movies. In those days, we could hardly put a photograph in the computer, right? So that is because he had a liking for movies. He was part of Pixar. He had a liking for music. He was part of some other music aspects. So he brought all of that into his products. By connect the dots, I mean that when he was a calligraphy student, he didn't think about what he's going to do with it in the future. But in the future, he brought in the multi-typeface font into the Mac because he had so he believed that everything he did had a purpose. Where did he learn that from? In India. Right? So he learned it from India, and in fact, he apparently advised Zuckerberg that to connect to himself and to connect to the world, please visit India. We are too much in India that we don't get the benefit, but this is, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, connecting the dots. He believed that if I did something today, it has a reason, and I'm going to bring that in into my future. Aggressive goals, Microsoft, a computer on every desk in every home. I'll cure the top 20 diseases in my lifetime. This is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So this is another way to think about products, right? Develop the voice of the future. I have slept in houses somebody else was already in, been in bedrooms, rented whole houses in Airbnb. I never ever thought anybody would be comfortable, a lady being comfortable being in one bedroom, renting another bedroom, right? These are all things I couldn't think of, but somebody did. That's why they built Airbnb. Communicate is an old example, 3M. So they communicated, hence a failed adhesive became a post-it note. And they had various means of communication, including failures. We'll skip, actually this I'll just pause because the market pull and product technology push comes together in this kind of a business canvas. But the critical thing when you think about products also is that what is the problem you're solving, what is the solution, what is your unique value proposition. Those are all standard management terms. But what I like is what is your unfair advantage. Why is it that you should be working on this product? This is lean canvas, it's called. So business model canvas is a bigger thing. So this is one of the tools you might be already familiar with. Is this told in your, yeah. So I'm anything which is simple, it need not be this. But you can learn from this and you can change it, make it your own. Yeah, so you learn to focus on the action from a company like GE. That's why Six Sigma is associated with GE, even though Six Sigma was not invented at GE. It's like playing golf. If you went to training, they'll say that pick the right club, loosen your knees, don't hold them tight, and then very strange swing. This hand doesn't bend at all. It goes straight back like that, and then it's so unnatural for a cricket player. Right, and then you hit the ball and you keep looking there only. You don't look at the ball. It will go to the right place. So these focus on the action. If you focus on the ball, it will swing. It will veer. It will go somewhere else. Right. So that is life also. Yeah, work as a team. You learn from Japanese companies, Toyota Production System. I told you VP at the bottom, the shop floor on the top. Leadership is meant to serve the shop floor. Truly, they do that. All these examples are not from reading. I walked the shop floor with Toyota Production System folks and learned it. So that's why it is here. We went to China and that's why this is here. Scale you learn from China. They don't think about anything less than 250 million users. This is Alibaba or it can be also Amazon, but this is Alibaba, the ability to think scale. I was in the Tata group, build and leverage trust. Right, so at many points of times in your product journey, it is your people trusting you, which is what will take the product through. Because there will be time when there is no funds. You will need to get more funds, or there will be time when your team requires motivation. And that trust that we are in the right team, we are going to make a difference, we are going to impact the world in this way, is what will take us through. Celebrate small and big wins. Southwest Airlines, for the longest time it was a great airline, low-cost airline, the first low-cost airline. They made it fun to travel. But some people might not like it. They're singing and dancing, and my colleague who was sitting with me said, boss, these guys will sing and dance even if the plane is crashing. It's not meant for everyone. But innovation and being able to bring products out require an optimistic culture. If you are morose and you come and bring down everybody's energy along with you, then you are hardly likely to bring out any product, right? Let me skip through. Two more examples and we'll be done. This is for change. The best place to understand change is from the pharma industry. The 95% plus of experiments fail, but the goal is not to stop failure, but to fail early. Because without failure, you will not get the next drug. Right? But it is to fail early so that you do not put too much money into something which will not work. As technologists, we are very good at showing the light at the turn of the road in the next, but we need to be the ones who are going to say that, let's put this on the back burner, let other ideas come through. But also, it is important to look at change in a different manner, which is where this is. Netflix is a great example. Does anyone know how Netflix started? Yeah, video renting CDs, right? They were mailing CDs, already disruptive, because people were going and getting VHS tapes from the physical library, they were mailing in CDs. Simultaneously, they started looking at sending movies over the internet. At that time, the bandwidth was crap, right? There was no way you could send a proper movie over the internet. But it didn't stop them. They felt that that will change, the internet will become much better. This was the time when to get email, all those sounds would come, right? If you were using one, none of you, come on, you're laughing, but you have not heard that sound, have you? We have. Right, so we would connect, and all these sounds used to come before anything, no life otherwise, right? So, but at that time they were thinking about sending movies over the bandwidth. So, with that, I think I'll pause. There were a few other things which we'll skip. Okay, I'll pause there because we are out of time. The company that we are in right now is product focused. We are looking at global first products from India. We are making a contribution to the OTT space, automotive and industrial. In the OTT space, Amazon is working with us, Qualcomm is working with us. They have the best engineering teams globally, including in India. But the fact that they're using our product means that we have something to offer. Similarly, Mahindra is, their AI partner is us. Their AI products will be built by us. As in Myelin Foundry. And in the industrial space, we are taking slow steps. That's my area of expertise. I've avoided it, but we will get in that as we go forward. So good luck as you build your own products. Create with freedom, nurture with passion, and change with detachment. Thank you very much.